Hello, I am Vicky Manitou Okas. Welcome. I am glad you're here today. And today we're going to get containers ready for making tiny little gardens for um, my space here, but also for to give you some ideas of things that you can use to create your own tiny gardens, no matter how much space you have. Most of the gardens that I'm going to be creating this in these pair of workshops are going to go sit outside, but some of them could come inside depending upon what it is. So let's get started and, come and join us for the next workshop on April 25th, and we'll start putting some little gardens together that will have a chance of being very productive depending upon how much care and the weather that we have outside this year. Well, since we are going to be doing recycling containers into tiny little gardens, we're going to need some tools. Okay. And it doesn't take a lot of tools to be able to do this. But everything that we're recycling today, we can do with the tools on this table. So no matter where you are at in your life, these are highly accessible, and you can find them in a lot of different places. The most difficult one to find is an old-fashioned drill brace. Okay, and I pick these up at auctions and flea markets. So it's just a hand crank. Don't need electricity for this, so I can stick this in my toolbox and go anywhere with it, no matter whether I've got electricity or not. And it works very nicely on most things. So it uses regular drill bits. So I'm going to pick the biggest drill bit out of here that I've got. That one will do. And to put this in the brace, so your chuck right there, stick that into there, and this will take a much bigger drill bit than this. You hold your chuck right here. This is your chuck. Carefully in the drill bit straight. Okay, and crank your handle clockwise to tighten that down onto that chuck down onto that bit so that it holds in there tightly. And you got to put a little bit of oomph into there. But now that's ready for drilling. A paring knife will cut drainage holes in most light plastics if you don't have a drill bit. A nail for coffee cans or light metal. Also, soup cans work. You need a hammer for that. A pair of scissors. For some of I'm going to be using some old jeans today, so I need some twine, some cordage to tie that up, or wire will do that. So let's set these aside and get started. One of the types and containers that works beautifully for an outdoor garden is an old milk crate. And this is still set up from last summer, where we grew some potatoes in a bunch of milk crates that we stacked one on top of the other. So we stacked them too high. So this one and then another one. And what you do is to use a milk crate, you line that with either cardboard or hay or straw. And this is lined with just a grassy hay, like you would feed horses. And to use it again this year, I'm going to need to put just a little bit more in here. And then you fill it with your potting soil and you can grow your plants in there. If you grow potatoes in here, you put several potatoes in, and they grow out. They will grow out the sides and out the top. So that makes a very nice container for planting potatoes in. So this one's already set up. I don't have to do very much for this one, so I just wanted to show you what this one looked like before we get started on actually prepping smaller ones. Another one of my favorites is coffee cans. And I love using coffee cans for small planters because I've already got them. Okay, I use the metal coffee cans, so when I'm buying coffee, I look for the coffee in the metal coffee cans. And what you do is, especially if you're going to use a table like this, leave the lid on for a minute. Okay. But to get this ready, the easiest way to get a coffee can ready, a large construction nail. This is about a 3-inch nail. Okay. Turn your coffee can upside down, and you want to make sure that you make the holes from the outside to the inside, and I'll show you why in a minute. Take your hammer, and it doesn't have to be this heavy of a hammer. Okay. Set it in the groove so that it doesn't slip. Give it a couple taps. I already did this because this is loud if I was actually going to put these holes in. Okay. So you just take your hammer and a nail, and you pound your holes in the bottom. I put in about 8, 9, 10 holes around in a circle like this for drainage. Okay, and that's what the hammer and nail is for. Okay. Once you have the nails in it, I've used the plastic lid to protect the table. Take that lid off, and I don't know if you can look in there, see in there, but that jagged points, the jagged edges in there are on the inside so that you don't cut yourself on those jagged edges or scratch up a table if you're going to use it inside. Now, in order to fancy this up a little bit, sometimes I take a pair of old jeans and cut that the size. So it's just an old worn out pair of jeans, and you cut that to the size that will fit on your coffee can. And this just fancies it up a bit. And you slip that onto the coffee can. And it'll stretch a little bit. And that's ready to go. I think what I'll do is I will cut that band off. Okay. Because that'll let that slip a little bit more, but I'll do that later. Now, since I've got the jeans out, okay, this actually makes a decent planter if you have some support for it. Okay, and the way I turn that into a planter is I take some cordage, and this is just nylon thread, artificial sinew. Zip up the pants, button that button, okay. and tie that leg closed. Okay, so that's closed. And I'm going to tie the other one closed. The last time I did this, I used some twine or yarn to go around in those loops. It's not necessary. And then this will sit in, once you fill this with soil, that will sit nicely, and you can plant some plants in there. That lasts about the summer, but it's a good way to use recycled jeans. And you can cut this off before, after, or last year I put little plants in the jeans themselves. See, not fancy, but it's cute. Okay, put a tall plant in there, sit that in a chair, and that looks, or up against the building, that looks really, really cute. So what I'm going to do with that extra denim is, these are just really, really cheap baskets, plastic baskets. They're not going to last very long, but they're going to be fine for annual plants or temporary plantings until we're ready to pot something up into a bigger barrel. Okay, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to take these jeans and I'm going to cut this open, and you can line this with you can line it with paper, you can line it with cardboard. I've got the old jeans, so I'm going to use the old jeans. And I'm going to work that around there. Okay. I'll probably take a needle and thread. I'll take a needle and thread and tie that in place. Okay. So let's see. I think, yeah. So one pant leg for this one will go all the way around. So I'm going to cut that in half and tie that in place before I put the soil in there, and then that will be a cute container for the summer for some of my plants. All right, here is another one. I bought this one at Goodwill, about $3 for this bucket at Goodwill. Okay, $3 for this bucket at Goodwill. It's a good sturdy bucket. I think I should have paid less than that for it, but this is going to work. This is a big enough bucket it's about a 3-gallon bucket. Okay, this is a big enough bucket for a cherry tomato, and maybe some annual herbs with that cherry tomato. And this is really, really easy to get ready. This is where the drill comes in. Okay, you just turn it upside down, and you can recycle 5-gallon buckets. You've got an old 5-gallon bucket that might be broken on the side or cracked in the bottom. no matter what you're doing to recycle a container, no matter what container you're recycling, it has to have drainage. So the baskets and the milk crate, since that is a loose weave, those have their own drainage and I don't have to worry about it. Something like a plastic bucket, if you're going to use it to plant in, you have to drill the holes, and this hand brace and bit works very nicely on plastic. So that should be enough drainage to allow that. And then just so I don't have to put, partly because I don't have to put quite as much soil in there, okay, and to help with the drainage, I'm going to put a little bit of gravel or rocks in the bottom of this. So I'll put rocks up to about maybe 2 inches in there to help with the drainage so the soil doesn't get clogged up into those holes. And then that will be ready for planting a tomato. Sometimes if those holes get clogged up, I'll go back through if it's not draining after it's planted, and I'll drill the sides as well. So that drilling the sides also helps with the drainage a little bit on this. This is the trays out of a cooler that got that was worn out and needed to be thrown away. This was the bottom tray out of a refrigerator, and both of these will make nice little containers for herbs. I like the idea of putting ginger or turmeric in the bigger one and maybe cement into the smaller one. So again, you do this the same way that I did the bucket. Just drill kind of randomly. And this one is big enough for a salad garden, little salad garden, or it's also big enough for maybe cement or something like that. Okay. I like using that drill on the plastic. Just makes it really, really easy. I don't have to get the electric drill out. And do the same thing with this one. Okay, now when you're dealing with plastic, sometimes it will crack. Okay, so no matter what kind of drill you use, light pressure and work slow. Okay, one of the things I like about the hand brace is it's a little bit slower drilling, so it does not melt the plastic and it's less likely to crack it. And when you're using an electric drill, that goes a lot faster, and it has a tendency to heat up that plastic and melt it onto the drill bit. All right, so at this point we are done with the drill. We've gotten all of the plastic pieces done. This is another cute little item that I found at Goodwill. This is technically a picnic basket, okay, but it is so cute and it's cloth. It will drain if I need it to drain. I can put this on a table outside. The basket, this will last about a year as it is if I use it for planting in a pot, but that's a possibility. It's got that cute little cardinal on the side and handles so I can move it around. This cost me less than $1 at Goodwill, so I don't know whether I'll use it for plants or whether I will use it as a tote. But either okay. Now what I will use before I use that one is these wicker baskets. Okay. Now this one is a fairly tight weave, so I will probably, yeah. What I will do is I will take, I've got an old sheet here, and I will line the sides of this with the old sheet. So that's where the scissors will come in. And just see where it's ripped there. So I'll recycle this into various different things, rags, but this will be nice on for some of the to line some of the baskets. And normally what I would do is take a yardstick or tape measure and measure the height of that basket and cut enough fabric to go to in the inside of this basket. Okay. And I will take just a string or needle and thread and do a quick sew. So that'll go around there. And if I need to cut another one, I'll cut another one. Okay. So and that will help keep the soil in and contain the roots a little bit and still let the moisture wick out. And that'll be cute on that. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. This is a much bigger basket. Okay. When I use the baskets like these two, I am going to fill the bottom of this with rocks, and probably with bottom of this with sticks and wood chips to make this a little bit lighter. Okay. And then fill it about the top 2/3 of that with a good potting mix. And I will probably I will put annuals in this one because this is a basket that is not going to last very long. And then I will place this basket where next to the regular garden beds so that soil can be put into the garden beds later. Okay. This is a basket that I made. This is a random weave basket that I made out of Asian bittersweet, which is an invasive in this area. So I make baskets to help get rid of it. It is a nice basketry material, but this is a very open weave. It'll make a beautiful planter. It's not going to be a very long-lived planter, but it will work. But in order to use this for a planter, I have to line it. So I'm going to use 2 layers of my old sheet. Since the sheet ripped, I'm going to take a double layer of the sheet and work it into that basket. So that I've got enough, make sure that I've got enough sheet in there for the basket. Okay. And then I'm going to take my scissors and I am going to trim the excess off. Just a real sloppy trim on that. So now I've got enough fabric to work with. Work this down into the basket. And I'm going to leave that excess on there until I'm ready to put potting soil in there. And once I have the potting soil in there, then I will trim off the extra, either tuck the extra into the basket or trim that off of there. So that will be, so you've got the nice basket look on the outside and a kind of a vintage fabric-y look on the inside. And that will be a nice looking basket that will, again, last about a season. But since I make these, I can go make another one. There's plenty of Asian bittersweet out there. It doesn't take a lot of money to grow a tiny little garden when you look around and find things that you already have in your home that you can use to plant in. Okay. Now, one of the other things if you can't find containers like that, okay, or old jeans or whatever, you got your milk jugs. Okay, this will hold a nice herb or a mint plant or herb or lettuce plant, mini greens. A lettuce plant would be nice in there. You just take your knife and cut the top out of there, about 8 inches deep. It doesn't have to be fancy. Use scissors. Use a nice sharp paring knife. Okay. On something like this, goes for it. Okay, now it does have to have drainage. Okay, I'm very carefully cutting drainage in the bottom of this, or you can use the drill. Okay, and now it's got drainage. Got an 8 inch, about a 6-inch pot there. Perfect. If you have a cat or a dog, okay, this also makes, you can also make a pot or plant annuals in something like this. If you already have it, okay, your litter bags, the bags that the litter comes into, dog food, cat food bags, anything of this nature, will make a container for a few plants. Fold that to the fold the top to the inside, so you've got a double layer. Cut a few holes in the bottom for drainage, and you've got a very, very cheap pot to plant something in that you didn't have to buy. You already had it in your house. If you have, I had a lot of fun today getting these containers ready for tiny little gardens here at Delectable Tiny Gardens. And these will get planted into uh, cute little cute little plantings that I'm going to put around the house on the outside for the summer, so that I have got beautiful herbs and vegetables for my health and for my food resiliency. And I hope that you enjoyed some getting these ideas for you to create food resiliency and health for fresh vegetables and herbs in your life. It really doesn't take much to create what you need for yourself. Not a lot of money, okay, not a lot of time. In about an hour, I created a baker's dozen of pots that I am going to plant in the next week or two. So 13 pots in an hour and just a few dollars, and most of it I already had on hand. So come and join us at Delectable Tiny Gardens. The next workshop is April 25th, where we're going to be putting together some creative little gardens using some of these containers, and we'll see how it all comes together as a starting garden for the summer. So, you know what? Like, subscribe, tell me what you would like to see in your tiny gardens. What are some of the creative pots that you can come up with that don't cost a lot of money, so that you can have fresh food in your life? So come and join us at Delectable Tiny Gardens, because we're doing the next step on April 25th.